Could Texas State, with its athletic potential and strategic location, be the key to Pac 12 expansion? Sources are speculating that the Bobcats could be the next big move, potentially reshaping the conference's future. But does this make sense? Today, we're taking a deep dive and breaking down the pros and cons of adding Texas State to the Pac 12 conference. It could be a game changer. Let's dive into it. I am your professor, the WildUte, and I have here with me today Becky, College Football Mafia contributor. How are you doing today, Becky?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Becky is the perfect person to talk about could Texas State be the next big move in Pac-12 expansion. So, Becky, why don't you tell everybody a little background and stuff on what's going on with Texas State and the Pac-12?
So, the Pac-12 wants a footprint somewhere out west. There's not a ton of schools, but the state of Texas is a hotbed for recruiting. It's a hotbed for a market, and it's a hotbed for eyeballs.
Mm-hmm.
It's the third most populous state in America, second or third, but they are bringing in eyeballs. It's in a great place. It's in between. It's like smack dab in the middle of the state. There's nothing beats Texas State right now. Just in their eyes, they just seem like the perfect one.
So Texas State is one of the top choices for Pac-12 expansion. That shouldn't surprise anybody, but really in this video, we're going to get into the specifics and why that is. And first off here, let's just jump into it. Let's jump into some of the pros and cons of Texas State. And there are very polar pros and cons, I think, benefits for adding Texas State. But as you mentioned already, Becky, really one of the biggest selling points is the new time zone and that you get with adding Texas State, and that's the central time zone. Like, why is that important?
It's important because it brings in additional time slots for your sports. So football can play at noon. They can play at 10 a.m. They can play at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. The West Coast teams can travel there and still play a decent afternoon game at, say, noon, local time in Texas, and it not be too early and not too late. It also brings a national audience. Now you have 3 separate time zones. And with that comes the nuance of multiple networks being able to take on your conference, which means more money for your conference.
Absolutely. Yeah, the central time zone's big, a lot more eyeballs, a lot more time slots, like you're mentioning. And really, the Pac-12 is stuck right now in the Mountain Pacific time zones. That was one of the issues with the old iteration of the Pac-12 with Washington, Utah, USC in it too. It just didn't get the eyeballs nationally because you're playing in select time spots. You're stuck in those time spots in the Pacific and Mountain time zones. So getting Texas State is big time because it's adding multiple games, probably 4 or 5 games per year, just adding one school, if you added Texas State, to play in that central time zone. More slot opportunities, your media partners love it. So it is a big pro for Texas State. And just to give you guys a little visual, too, of what that looks like, well, check this out. So the new time zone here. New time zones, you can see right here in the middle of this graph, the Texas State's in that central time zone. But look at all the other locations of the Pac-12 schools. You got a couple here in the Mountain time zone in green, and then you've got the orange, which is the Pacific time zone. But Texas State brings that new time zone territory, and that's really important. Now, moving on to the second pro for Texas State is the market. You spoke to this briefly, Becky. Let's get a little bit more into the market. Why is the market so attractive for Texas State?
Because of where it is. It's in the middle of Texas. It's right smack dab between Austin and San Antonio. Like, you can't get a larger population group than San Antonio and Austin, right? Like, I mean, it's like San Marcos is like dead center. You can't get any closer on the on I-35. Like, it just sits right there. Like
100%, right?
I mean, So many homes. Austin, Texas, the University of Texas rules Austin. Everybody knows that. But not Austin's the capital of Texas. Not everybody who lives in Austin went to Texas. They went to A&M. They went to North Texas. They went to Texas State. They went to UTSA. They went all UTEP. They're from all parts of the state. And when you do that, you bring eyeballs because some people really just enjoy college football. Getting out there, though, this is more people to recruit from than the University of Texas, the SEC, the Big Ten, or Conference USA, AAC. There's so many kids in that little area that are D1 athletes. It's absurd. And yeah, Houston's only a few hours away from there too.
Look at that triangle right here. Just look at that illustration. Like you're saying, expanding on it too. Just look at the DMAs, the designated market area, which means how many television watching households there are. I'm not even talking about population. We're talking about people watching on televisions, individual households. Austin, 31 miles away from San Marcos, 2.4 million eyeballs, TV watching eyeballs in that market. You had a little south, San Antonio, like you mentioned, 49 miles away from San Marcos. So you're talking about less than 100 miles, less than 50 miles away for each. There's 2.6 million. And then Houston, while it is 165 miles away, it's not like it's right next door. It does complete the triangle here for Texas State. And you're adding a massive amount of eyeballs, of course, in Houston, one of the biggest markets in the U.S., DMA size 6.8 million. Look, if you looked at that radius, that triangle radius, we're talking about almost 12 million television watching households for Texas State. Look, Texas State does not command all that market. We know that. Texas State is a growing brand, but still the opportunity, the growth opportunity with a school like Texas State just being in the territory of all those households, all that population, all those eyeballs is massive for the Pac-12.
And let's not beat around the bush. These are shorter air flights than you would see with most other schools. You have you literally have 2 airports you could fly into if you're a Pac-12 school. Austin or San Antonio. It's your choice. You can fly into either one, stay in either one, and San Antonio and Houston both provide an ample opportunity for a neutral site conference championship game if that's what you want to do. They're right there. They both have dome stadiums. They're fully ready to get more big-time football. And again, college football is king in Texas. High school football, college football, professional football. Texans love their football. They will go after it. They will go after it. And like I said, these are short flights, really, comparative to other places that they've looked at. Memphis and Tulane are farther away. South Florida would have been really, really far. And UTSA was the only one that's right in that same area.
It is. And speaking of the growth opportunities, now I'll speak to enrollment size. This is something recently learned here. Texas State's enrollment is like top 30 nationally, top 40 nationally in that 30-40 range, with over 40,000 current enrollees into the university. That would be number one tops in the Pac-12. So we're talking about not only all these eyeballs within this triangle, the market triangle that you're looking at, we're talking about a lot of kids going to Texas State and that school growing too. So the people in this territory and the market and stuff are actually going to Texas State, and it's just building up and becoming a larger, more significant player in college athletics at the end of the day. So that is another attractive driver too, is the high enrollment. Like, this is crazy. Like Texas State is not at the same level, obviously, as an A&M or a UT and stuff. But there's been some recent information by a big-time Texas Tech booster about SEC schools and the benefit they've got by getting into the state of Texas. So 20,000 Texas-based students are now going to other SEC schools because of the linkage between UT Austin and Texas A&M. It just shows you that there's cross-pollination amongst these different schools where you can jump. And since your team is playing another team in your conference, you get more, it's more consistent and you get more comfortable with those different schools. So another opportunity here, perhaps for the Pac-12, is actually getting more Texas students from elsewhere in this area too to go to Pac-12 universities. And one evidence point is that high enrollment number.
Yeah, I mean, you have the only schools that are really comparative are San Diego State and Oregon State. Both have roughly 38, 39,000 themselves. So, and Oregon State's just growing. I don't know a lot of people know that Oregon State is, their enrollment's getting huge. But yeah, this opens up, again, football and athletics are recruiting tools first and foremost. This is how you get your university on TV in a new place. State of Texas, you get your university out there and you have a high school kid who's like, hey, you know what? I want to study oceanography. Well, the Oregon State University has one of the best oceanography schools in the country. Washington State University, one of the best veterinary programs in the country. And I'm talking like not pets, I'm talking large animals. Like they have a grizzly farm, for God's sakes. Like this is what they do. If this is how you get these students, this is how you bring them in. You know, Boise State didn't put down blue turf because it looks cool. They put it down because they needed to put themselves on the map. And everybody now knows, hey, Boise State, it's really cool. I want to go there. So you get these students, you get new eyeballs, you draw more kids from those areas, you get a better turnout, and you get better research. These are still, like Oregon State is still a research university. It's not something small. Washington State, research university. They're AAU. They want these kids. They Fresno State and San Diego State, yeah, they're mostly California, but you have to branch out by creating, quote unquote, a diverse student body from around the country. You have different things that have been taught in every single state. You create a better learning experience at the university level. Absolutely.
And just to hammer home something you've already mentioned here, is all the recruiting talent in Texas. Any football fan knows that Texas is a hotbed for recruiting talent. It's either first, second, or third in any given year with Florida and California, usually first. It is the mecca of football talent for high school. Just look at how much football talent in the triangle here you would have access to for recruiting for Pac-12 school and Texas State if they leveled up and got into the Pac-12. That is a huge pro for Texas State. So we nailed it out, talking about the massive growth opportunities of Texas State. But we have to be honest, too, about some of the cons with Texas State. It's not just rosy. There's always a little bit of con here that we need to consider. And the first thing that comes to mind when thinking of Texas State is the brand itself, and would be considered an emerging brand. Texas State joined the FBS in 2012, so they haven't been in the FBS for 20 years, right? Like 12, 13 years. So, look, it's not an established brand like UT, A&M, Texas Tech, Baylor, and the A4 level schools, although it is growing. What are your thoughts about the brand for Texas State?
So, yeah, I mean, Texas State, they've had football since 1904. They were a D2 school until about 30 years ago. So they're right on that same kind of like time frame when Boise made the switch as well. But joining from FCS to FBS in 2012, they're fledgling. They're young. They're not getting the attention that other schools would probably have who've already, like a Boise State, who have had 30 years to get better at that. What they're doing. But the brand is it's getting there. I mean, they are making news. They are all over the place. And if you've seen their stadium, it's huge. Like this is a school that has put themselves out there, and they're playing in a conference that allows them to be seen around the country. And it took them a while to get there, but they got there. But it is an emerging brand. It's young. It's a fledgling thing. It's not going to be your top brand, but it's better than some other brands that are floating around out there who, yeah, they might have been FBS for their entire existence for 100 years as well, but they're not the same brand.
Exactly. And just to add a little bit more evidence to that, too, here's a little bit of research done into social media followings on X, Instagram, and Facebook for all the existing Pac-12 schools, plus Texas State is combining all the football, men's basketball followers on all those platforms and adding them up. Texas State has about 160,000 followers across those three platforms in football, men's basketball. And if you're looking at someone like a Boise State who has almost 500,000 because of the football brand and everything, not quite there yet, not quite in the median or average of a Pac-12 school, but against other options, this is pretty good, actually. Like you're saying, Becky, too. Like when you're looking at versus a Sam Houston State, when you're looking at versus Louisiana, for example, you're actually stacking up fairly well and everything versus realistic options for Pac-12 entry into the state of Texas. It's a growth brand. And that's the way you need to actually look at it too. So con one is the emerging brand status of Texas State. Now let's get into con number two that basically kind of parlays, also drifts off con number one. Very low historical TV viewership, okay? Look, Texas State's currently in the Sun Belt. The Sun Belt doesn't get a lot of distribution, right? It doesn't get a lot of show at the moment. And even over the last 11 years, Texas State, they were in the FBS, you only have 18 Nielsen-rated games across that timeline. And if you're going in and looking actually and breaking down the average views per week of a Texas State compared to the existing Pac-12, I mean, you're way lower than really anybody else because you just haven't been getting that distribution. You haven't been getting showed on TV very much. So talking about brand again, what are your thoughts on like the TV aspect of this?
Yeah, when it comes to TV aspect, yeah, they just haven't. This is that fledgling thing we were talking about. Nobody watched FCS football. They do, but ESPN shows one big game a year, and it's usually a playoff game or a Montana State, or recently North Dakota State, South Dakota State, some kind of like big top-ranked matchup or just nasty rivalry. Texas State doesn't really have that.
In the Sun Belt, yeah.
They're in the Sun Belt. They're not going to be on TV. They're going to be on ESPN Plus. If they are on TV, it might be on ESPNU or ESPN News. It's going to be sandwiched somewhere because they're in the Sun Belt. They have to work around the ACC, the Big 12, and of course the SEC. So they're getting moved around a bit, and they have to be put there. And they're going to play weird days. They might play on Thursday. They might play on Friday. They might play on Saturday. There may be games on Wednesdays. Nobody's watching those games, but it's not a Texas State fault. That's just the conference. But by being if they move to a conference like the Pac-12, where they'll have established game times, they'll have an established network. And yeah, they might still play on a Thursday. That might happen. Might play on a Friday. That's going to happen. And they're going to play on Saturday. But they're going to play on television screens in Seattle, Portland, the Bay Area, Denver, San Diego, Southern California. They're going to be even out there in Salt Lake City. They're going to be on TV. There will be eyeballs. And when you take like the basketball aspect, Gonzaga brings massive eyeballs compared to the others on a basketball scale. So Gonzaga, Washington State, you're going to be on TV in a major city like Seattle a lot. You're going to get people going, hey, I want to check out that school a little bit more. I want to watch a little bit more of them. And if they can be good, even better, because now it makes people go, I have to watch them. I have to watch them.
And this chart you're seeing here, this is football-only viewership. This is Nielsen-rated data, just the raw Nielsen-rated data, no adjustments for the last 3 years. That is why Gonzaga has a fat 0 because they don't play football, right? So just give everybody a heads up. Texas State, again, is in the last position for the football playing members when you throw them into the existing pack. But what could this be like? So, Becky, like if Texas State was established in the Pac-12, say it happens, they go to the Pac-12 in the next 5 years, what could the viewership look like, on a list like this? Do you think they can bump up to halfway point? Would they still be the bottom tier? What kind of growth could we see?
Well, you're going to see them bump up. I mean, Washington State, Oregon State will draw 1 to 2 million viewers some games. They really will. But Boise State will draw 1 to 2 million viewers every once in a blue moon. And they're playing them, and they turn into a good team in the Pac-12 near the top. Those numbers will boost. As we all know, bottom teams don't get watched as much because they get put on at stupid times. No offense to those schools. They're bad times. But just by being on TV against an Oregon State and Washington State, you'll see that bump. Because no offense to the SBC, but none of your schools are pulling an Oregon State or a Washington State number-wise. Just it's not happening. So, like I said, it's big numbers. You'll see the boost. They'll get on TV more. They'll be able to be recruited more. They are great fledgling because of this. And I fully expect, by the way, 18 Nielsen rated games and they're playing a 0.05, like 50,000 people, like on average. Right. That's actually not terrible considering
it's not.
Like they're barely on TV.
That's the weekly rating that they'd get when you average out all their games. So it's more than 50,000 per week. They're actually getting more when they're playing games on a Nielsen rated channel. So it's better than that. That's like the worst case scenario when you shake it out that they're getting 50K per week. And then the last con here is perhaps a huge one, and that's the travel costs. Travel costs aren't really discussed that much, but when you're looking at Texas State, they are in the central time zone. They are in San Marcos. They are in Texas. You're multiple states away, really, from the Pac-12 footprint. So you're getting all your sports. If you're adding all your sports, you're getting everyone to fly up to Seattle, right? Up to Corvallis and Spokane, like in everywhere, within the Pac-12 footprint. So how big a deal is the travel cost for a school like Texas State when we're talking about entry here?
It becomes a little bit of a deal when you look at your non-revenue sports. Now the Pac-12 is going to make, it's the big key here, they are pretty much obligated to pay their athletes amongst that settlement. They pretty much are obligated to do that because they're literally listed in the settlement. The Pac-12 is a part of that settlement. So whoever gets added must take that into account. So
is that the revenue share?
The revenue share is going to have to be a thing. And I think they've pledged to do the full amount. And Oregon State and Washington State can do that because they got to keep up with the Joneses. They have two big dogs in their backyard. So they don't want to lose. They still have a little bit of pride for being a power conference school, and I get it. But those have to be added in. We don't know, and again, we don't know 100% if they may change their minds or maybe they'll like do a different dollar amount. But they pledged to do that $20 million as far as we know. It may not be anything more than just football. Mm-hmm. And it's totally possible. And what that would require would be a Texas State having to find another home for all their other sports. And it would have to be a conference that does not have FBS football. They have to be an FCS conference or just no football at all. Similar situation to what Northern Illinois did. Their sports are not playing in the MAC. They're going to play in, I believe, the Horizon League or the Missouri Valley, but neither one of those conferences have FBS level teams. They're FCS, so that's the way to kind of get around it. That's how UConn stays independent in football. Everything's in the Big East, so they can be independent in football. But
that's a tough sell for Texas State. You're a growing brand, just to go play football in the Pac-12. I don't know if they would bite that. I think that they want to be a full member. to me, it seems like if Texas State is indeed going to be a Pac-12 member, we are again speculating. Sources are saying that stuff. It's very likely to happen.
Very likely.
Not a guarantee, though, right? Like
Mhm.
you have to look at other options in that region to
Yeah.
help them out a little bit, right? So it cannot just be stopping with one Texas-based school. You've
Correct.
got to look elsewhere to help the Bobcats out or any expansion candidate that's farther away from the footprint. So maybe that helps, but man, I just can't see it be football only. It's got to be all sports, I would think.
Yeah, and it might be a situation similar to what Hawaii was doing
Mm.
because they were a football only member in the Mountain West. They will now transition to all sports, but it was done that way for Hawaii for the travel benefits because Hawaii's football team usually had to stay stateside for a week or two at a time before flying back. It's just cheaper and easier than flying all that. But we do know, because San Diego State athletic director let it out of the bag and got in a little bit of trouble for it, we know they're going to add one now. They're going to look to add 2 to 3 more later. Whether that's and most likely if Texas State came on with all sports, we know they're going to look to add all sports. We don't know, like you said, a lot of negotiation, a lot of talk still to do, but the 3 other teams will most likely, like you said, they're going to have to be in that region in the Southwest near Texas State. We know New Mexico State, and it's pretty much out. So this is where we're at. Like, there's not a whole lot left, so that's where you hear the Rice. You hear about, and Rice is 160 miles away. You hear about North Texas, which is, I believe, just outside Dallas. You hear about a UTSA. You hear those, you hear those things, and this is why Memphis and Tulane and UTSA remain a rumor, because they wanted, if they're going to add any schools, they have to have a little bubble there to negate those travel costs. Like you said, traveling to Pullman is not a cheap thing. Traveling to Corvallis is not a cheap thing. The longest flight they'll have to make would probably be to Corvallis. The longest flight. Corvallis, Fresno State, Washington State, San Diego State.
Yep.
And that's a lot of money for a small school that's still bring it. But I mean, 40,000 students, they can make that money up quick.
So in summary, what are your last impressions with the Pac-12 and Texas State? Just give everyone how you think it's going to go. Look, this isn't a guarantee by any means, but how do you see it shaking out?
I think it'll end up being a football-only membership at the beginning, with maybe an option to join in all sports after they figure out who the next wave will be, because they don't have, Pac-12 does not have to get the next wave right now. They can do that in a year. They can do it in 2 years. They need the 8th because they're under a time crunch. The NCAA is, in order to stay a conference, they have to have 8 members, and they have to have 8 members soon. So they're running out of time. They only get 2 years to be a conference without an 8th member. So I think it plays out. Texas State could end up being that school, and if they do, I think they stay as a football-only member. They'll find a home for all their, maybe basketball comes with, but the other sports will find a home elsewhere, and with that, they'll be able to do certain other things, and that allows them to then find other schools in the area and say, hey, we have Texas State, you don't have to travel as far. And it brings into other schools like Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns.
The Raging Cajuns.
It brings
them.
I love them. And it brings those schools into the fold, because now you're like, hey, look, you don't have to make a super long trip all the time. You can go short trip to this Texas school or two, come back, and then we bring our West Coast schools down to you, and maybe you only make one trip out west, maybe 2, and it's just a couple of stops, and then you're back. Cuts down on that. The Big Ten's doing it. The ACC is doing it. Granted, they have more money, but they set it up. A lot of them, they're setting it up now to where they have schools in the middle, so they don't have to do as much travel. So we'll see.
Yep, good stuff, Becky. Thanks for joining. Would adding Texas State boost the Pac-12, or is it simply a risky gamble? Would Texas State be a full member or a football-only member? Share your thoughts below and hit that subscribe button to get more realignment news. Class is dismissed.